Welcome to our IntelliJ IDEA demo. So some people say the IntelliJ IDE. Very few people say IntelliJ IDEA. It is an acronym. It's the Integrated Development Environment for Applications. That's what the A stands for. But it's just easier to say IntelliJ IDEA. So you might hear me say IntelliJ IDEA. It's just to emphasize the IDE part, right? That's really what we're using here. IDEA is just a kind of a clever um, play on the term IDE, right? Just adding that extra letter. Anyways, let's go ahead and jump into our IDE. So I'm going to double click on my shortcut here, and you should see a very similar window. If you don't have any recent projects, this will be empty, and it'll probably give you the new project option here. But if it does, right, you can just hit new project to pull up that window. I'm going to extend this window a bit. As you can see here, if you want to create a new project, you have to give it a name. So I'll call it new project. And then the location here, this is the place in your computer, right? In your directories, your folders, where that's going to save. So you can change that. It doesn't have to go to this folder. You can certainly change it, but this is the default location where your IDEA projects, right, are going to go for the IntelliJ IDEA software. All right, so Git repository. This is a useful source control tool. We're not going to be covering that in this lesson. But yeah, Git, really essential tool for software developers. It just helps us manage different versions, keep track of old versions as well. If we kind of make, we're building a really big project, we make some mistakes, you can go back to older versions, test things out. In a business setting, version control is essential, right? For the stability and for the maintenance of projects over time. Anyways, so here we see the build system. We're just going to keep IntelliJ. We're not building any Java Spring projects, for example, so we're not using Maven or Gradle. And here's a JDK. So this is just the download we had, right? That actually includes the Java resources we need, just like the compiler, right? The runtime to actually run our code, JavaDoc for generating documentation. Things we'll cover in this lesson, some of those terms in greater detail. So good idea to put add sample code. It's just going to have some pre-built or pre-written code for you to start with. This is always a good idea for us beginners, just to start with the sample code. I'm going to uncheck the generate code with onboarding tips. Don't need that since we're just going to stick to the basics for this demo. All right, so I'm going to hit create, and that's going to generate my new project here. You can see the new project folder. That's the name. At the same level, we have this external library. So these are some of our JDK resources here. So we have compiler resources, right, for compiling our code. That's the translating of our human code, right, to lower level code. And then we have also like runtime tools. We have documentation tools. And we have actual libraries that help us write code. So these libraries, these Java standard libraries, essentially give us tools so that we can do things with our code, and we don't have to worry about like writing super low level things. These are like pre-built tools that we can use for all sorts of different scenarios and applications. One of them, for example, is this print statement that we're going to learn about later on today. It's part of those Java standard libraries. Anyways, let's crack open our new project folder. So you just click on these little arrows to see the folders inside. So this IDEA folder, this is just part of the IDE. So these are non-essential files. This is really just for the IDE's features and just important folders so that it can give us some of the tools we need. And then we have our source folder. So that's that's an essential folder here. This is actually where our source code typically goes in the SRC folder. So SRC, short for source code, right? We've already discussed that in the previous lesson. If you crack this folder open, you'll see our main class here. So this is a main.java class, as you can see by the tab here once I open it. So .java files, we'll discuss that later in this lesson. That's where your source code is. Those are those files that you write, the human readable files. Now, I know this hardly seems human readable to us right now that we're beginners. This kind of seems like nonsense, right? A bunch of like keywords, public, static, this random code here. Seems a little spooky, right? But I promise you, we'll discuss kind of what this code does. But for the idea demo, right? The IDE demo, we're not going to be talking code so much, more of actually just navigating this application. All right, so let's see what's on the menu. So let's change our IDE settings. So you can do that via the settings. Um, that's also at the beginning. If I close this project, I can see here new project, first project, and there's a little settings icon. So for example, something you might want to change right at the beginning is the theme. You go with light theme, definitely tough on the eyes, so I like to go with dark theme. Fun fact, dark theme does save energy, so good for the environment when you stick with dark theme. Zoom, I have my zoom cranked up to 150% just because it's going to be easier for y'all to see the code in my demos. Make sure when you are watching these videos, because we're working with like these interfaces, right, this small text, that you crank up the quality on those YouTube videos. So make sure you're watching 1080p, right, or higher, um, if your internet connection permits. So yeah, dark theme, for example, you can mess around with lots of different things. We're not going to explore all the settings, of course, right? We're just keeping it basic. So dark themes are definitely a good setting to change. Zoom, right? If you need to change, right, the size of the text. You can also include custom fonts if you want. We're going to hit OK. We're going to stick with our dark theme, and then I'm going to open my new project here from the recent projects. All right, so that's changing the settings. There's definitely a lot more, like I said, but we're just going to stick with the basics. So we've created a new project. If you want to open an existing project, right, you can go to your recent projects, or you can hit open, and it's going to ask you to find the folder for your project. So it's under users, under your username, and then you should find the idea projects, and these folders are for your project. So if I hit, for example, open my first project, it's going to ask me, do I want to open in another window or in this window? If I hit new window, then I have two projects open at the same time. This one's a little bit different, looks kind of the same though. All right, so let's see. So yeah, this is my main.java class, right? It's my only source code file right now. It's the one they generated for me by default. So this is a very common starter code. It's just going to print out hello world is what it does. I know we haven't discussed the details, right, of what all these words mean in our code. Just bear with me, right? We'll be covering that in some of the next slides and videos. All right, so what if I want to actually run a program, right? We have a lot of little play buttons here. Typically, I stick with my top button here on the toolbar, the run main.java. So whatever file I'm on, it's going to say, hey, do you want to run it? I'm going to hit run main.java, and then check it out. It says the location of my Java JDK was invoked. So it says, hey, I need to actually run a Java program. Where's your JDK? Well, it's over here in my program files. And then it's going to actually look for, it's going to send my source code there, right, from new project. So that's kind of what this first line is telling us, just information about the file that we ran. But the actual output of this code, what was generated, is here, the hello world. So very basic code. All it does is it outputs this text, hello world. So that's how we run code. Another useful thing is something called debugging code, right? Or the debug option on IDEs. So this helps you step through code, helps you identify issues in your code. So let's say I had an extra line of code, right? I have hello world, so I just copy pasted. So your keyboard shortcuts are going to be really useful as a programmer. We do a lot of copy pasting, so Control C, Control V. I'm gonna say goodbye world. Yeah, really get familiar with your keyboard shortcuts. Another useful shortcut is the triple click. Triple click's going to highlight the entire line. Double click's going to highlight a single word. Yeah, things like that are going to be really useful when you're writing your first code just to speed things up. All right, so I'm going to run this code and I'm going to see what it does. Nothing special, right? Hello world, and now goodbye world. So I kind of just copied this code, changed a single word. That's always a good way, right, to not introduce bugs in your code is to use previous code that already works. But let's